Dear friends, welcome back to Automate with Rakesh. In this video, we are going to learn about the SLA. Under the monitoring tab, there is something called SLA. So our topic is SLA, which stands for Service Level Agreements in Orchestrator. So what is that? How do you set up? We need to understand. So what is the need of SLA? Let us first understand that. What is SLA? Service Level Agreement. This SLA is generally, you might have already heard this term. Let's say there is a service provider who's supposed to provide a service and you are the customer, right? So he says, sir, I am going to deliver this product. So you have ordered some product. He says, I'm going to deliver this product in 24 hours. So that is the agreement between the service provider and the customer. So he said within 24 hours, anytime you are placing any order from my store, within 24 hours, this will be delivered to you. So what is this? This is an agreement between you and the service provider called service level agreement. This is called SLA. Service level agreement means you are agreeing to a term anytime you are ordering a product from this particular provider, service provider. It could be a grocery store or anything like that. So they gave that SLA stating that moment you placing an order, from there 24 hours, within 24 hours, we are going to provide you the service. We are going to deliver the product. So now let's understand what is SLA related to Orchestrator. Okay, so this is related to your queue. SLA is related to queue. So what is the general understanding of SLA with respect to queue in Orchestrator? I'm going to show you each step. So let's first understand the fundamentals behind the scene. What is this SLA and a queue? So for example, in queue, you have added one queue item you have added at 4 p.m. Okay, which needs to be processed. Okay, to be processed. Let's say you have added the next item to the queue at 6 p.m. which again needs to be processed. Next, you have added your next item at 7 p.m. So at what times you have added? First one you have added at 4 p.m. The second item that you have added at 6 p.m. and the third item that you have added in 7 p.m. which all needs to be processed. You have defined every time I am adding any item to the queue, that has to be processed in 2 hours. That is the SLA. What is the SLA agreement? It has to be processed in 2 hours. So if it has to process in 2 hours, that means the item which got added at 4 p.m. should be processed on or before 4 plus 6, which is 4 plus 2 is equal to 6 p.m. So this particular item which you have added at 4 p.m. should be processed before 6 p.m. on or before 6 p.m. So this is a SLA. So these SLAs are applicable on each item, not on the overall queue. When I'm mentioning SLA for 2 hours, that means each item that I'm adding, so that getting 2 hours of time to be processed. Within the 2 hours, it should be processed. So if you're adding a transaction item at 4 p.m., that should be processed within the next 2 hours, that is 6 p.m. Similar way, if you have added an item at 6 p.m., so it should be processed on or before 8 p.m. plus 2 hours. If you are adding an item at 7 p.m., that means that should be processed on or before 9 p.m. Getting it? 6 plus 2. So everywhere you are having 2 hours of window, that is called SLA. This is called service level agreement. Each item should be processed in next 2 hours. That is a SLA. So you have understood the concept of SLA. Now let us see how you enable SLA, how to enable SLA. This is the main area we need to understand. To enable SLA, simply go to Orchestrator. As I said, this is based on the queue. In the queue, you need to define SLA. So for that, you create a queue. I have already a queue created, so I'll not create another new queue. Let me edit this. So you have a queue, you have given some name and everything is there. So here there is something called SLA prediction. Here you would find SLA prediction. So where do you find, how do you enable? You go to Orchestrator and then you are going to the folder. You will go to the folder and then click on queue and add queue. And here you are going to enable SLA. Right? So again, once again, let me show you the step. So you go to the folder, you go to the queue and click on add queue. And here you create a new queue. If you create a new queue, you will be adding it. So I already have an existing queue. So let me simply edit this. And here you find something called SLA prediction. You need to enable SLA for this queue. Getting it? SLA for newly added queue items. So it is always on the item level, not the entire queue level that don't have a deadline. If it doesn't have a deadline, if you already have a deadline, anyways, you are setting an SLA for that particular item. If you don't have a deadline, it's generic queue items going onto the queue. So for each item, you are providing a SLA. Now let me provide a SLA of 2 hours for each item. So what is the meaning? The same thing that we have understood in this concept. If an item getting added at 4 p.m., that means within 6 p.m. it should get completed. It should be processed. If the item is getting added at 6 p.m., it should be processed next 2 hours, right? Same thing. The same thing will get the moment you enable and say 2 hours, it getting the rule getting added to all the items present in the queue. And that should be a new item. Remember this one more term. It should be a new queue item or any queue item with the status new. So the status should be new. The queue item status should be new. Then the SLA starts working on them. So within it will check at what time it got added to the queue. From there, whatever time you have defined, within that, are you processing or not? It is going to check. All right. So I have given 2 hours and below that there is something called a risk SLA. Now let's understand this new term. What is the new term? What is risk SLA? What is risk SLA? So what is risk SLA? If I enable this, okay, risk SLA is 75% of the SLA. So risk SLA would give you a kind of a, for example, 2 hours is your deadline. Within 2 hours, that item should be processed. So at 1 hour 30 minutes, it gives you kind of an alert stating, hey, it is already 1 hour 30 minutes. You only have 30 minutes left and the item is yet not processed. Right? So this is a risk SLA. After 1 hour 30 minutes, if it still finds that the item is not yet processed, it gives you an alert. So you can take some step around that. So that is called risk SLA. So risk SLA is an alert mechanism to alert you that the item may not meet the SLA. So you can take action prior the SLA time. So for example, 4 p.m. the item has been added. Within 6 p.m. it should be processed, but it will check until 5:30. Let's say I have set 1 hour 30. So until 5:30 p.m. if the item is not yet processed, it will alert you. Right? So you can define. So I don't want 1 hour 30 minutes. I will only have 30 minutes. When the moment I receive the alert, I'll just have 30 minutes to act. So instead of giving 30 minutes, I can give some, I'll only give 1 hour of SLA. So after 1 hour, it will alert me. So you can define as you need. Okay. So I'll make it to 00. So after 1 hour, it will alert me. Okay. So this is how you will be setting the SLA at a queue level. For that queue, you are going to set a SLA and you are going to update. Okay. Now, the moment you enable SLA, if you go to monitoring tab and click on SLA, where to find, right? Where to find. Next thing is where to find the SLA. So how to enable, I have told you. How do you enable it? Where do you find it? So for that, you go to monitoring tab and SLA. Remember this. So you have to go to monitoring tab and SLA. Done. So let's go to monitoring tab, SLA, and here you see for the Q1, because you have enabled, it is appearing. Now it is all green. No queue items is predicted to be at risk out of SLA. So now all in green. So no problem. Now let's say I'm going to get back to the queue and let me disable it. Okay, let's go to the queue, and in the Q1 I'll edit it and I'm going to disable this SLA and update. Okay, now as it is disabled, if I go back to monitoring and go to SLA, what happened? No queue found. So it is not exactly monitoring anything. Okay, you can see it is all blank. All right, now let's go back once again, edit, enable SLA. Okay, the processing Q1 is already selected, and here here there is, I'm putting 2 hours, and risk SLA, let it be 1 or 30 minutes, and I'm going to update. So based on the requirement you change. Now let me update. Now let us run this and see how it is really monitoring. Next thing we are going to look at is, let's run the processing, or let's process the queue items from the target queue and monitor SLA and monitor SLA. So let's see that. Let's see a demo of it. Let me go back to Orchestrator. So this is my Orchestrator. Now here, what did we enable? We have enabled it's for 2 hours. 2 hours. Now let us see if there is any queue items currently present in this queue or not. So for that, hit on this and hit on view transactions. If you come here, see there's no new items. All are successful. There's no new items are present. So what I will do, I'll populate this queue by running a dispatcher. So I have already built a dispatcher in my previous videos. You must have already seen that. So there is a dispatcher process for Q1. Pretty simple one, is just uploading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 until 50. So let me first run this. Okay. Before that, let me ensure there are no triggers. Okay. So there is a queue trigger. So that's fine. So the queue trigger which is going to process either 10 items. So that is fine. Let's leave it. Now let's go to the queue and let us first populate some items which are new. Okay, currently there are no items which are new. View transactions in the status. So how do I see if there are new items available or not? By simply hitting on new, filter and new. So there are no results found. Reset to default. Go back to the queue. And here let us first run the dispatcher bot to populate the queue. Now the moment I run the dispatcher bot, what would happen? This dispatcher bot is going to upload some data to the Q1. Okay. It is linked for Q1. So it is going to upload the data into the Q1. Now if I quickly go to the queue and refresh this and click on view transactions, you would see so many new items got added. It is happening so fast, right? Behind the scene. Now let's go back, go to the automation. If you go to the monitoring tab and click on SLA, what happened? Meanwhile, so it is coming in red. At least one queue items is predicted to be overdue SLA breach in 1 hour. So it is giving you some kind of a statistics which tells you SLA breach. It is going to breach in 1 hour. Let me expand this, in 1 hour, because my SLA for that queue, what is the SLA that we have kept for the queue? If you hit on edit, the SLA that we have kept is 2 hours and the risk SLA is 1 hour 30 minutes. Okay. So let's go back, monitoring SLA. So here it is saying 1 hour 4 minutes. Now out of SLA, there are 38 items which could go out of SLA. So what are these definitions? Let us first understand. Okay. Now meanwhile, I have also have a queue based trigger. If there are items in the queue, you would see there are also processing will start. If you see the processing also going on. Okay. Now it is processing. The first processing has started. So like that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 processing simultaneously, which would start. Now if you go back to the monitoring is giving you some kind of a data. Now it has become green. See, all become green because the processing has happened. The processing has happened and it all become green. Now let's do one thing. Let me go to automations, triggers, because that processing is starting automatically, right? So what I will do, I'll just delete this. Okay, the queue based trigger, let me delete it. Now I have to start the processing manually. What I will do, I'll go to the queue and I'm going to change the timing, the SLA timing. Instead of making it 2 hours, because I know all my items can be processed very quickly, and they are uploaded very quickly. So what I will do, instead of 1 hour, what you do, instead of 2 hours, I am going to put it as 1 minute. Okay, 1 minute, and we don't have seconds, so risk SLA also would be set to 1 minute because it cannot be divided to 75% of that, right? So last is 1 minute. So 1 minute I have kept. That means each item. So what is the meaning of this? So I've got some 50 items which I'm going to add through the dispatcher. So each item should be processed within 1 minute. Okay, each item should be processed within 1 minute. So that is the requirement. So what would happen because of this, because I've set 1 minute, the moment I hit on update. Okay, the moment I hit on update, let us see the queue items. View transactions, and there are no new items right now. So if you, because there are no new items, if you go to monitoring, it is all green now. What I'm going to do, let us add some new item, but the processing will not start immediately this time. I have to manually start the processing. Now here, let us run the dispatcher queue, which is going to add some new items to the queue, to the Q1. Okay, so the dispatcher started running. Dispatcher started running. Okay, so that means if I open the queue, I should be able to see some new items. So new items got added. Now each of these new item which are getting added, right? Each of this new item which are getting added now has to be processed in next 1 minute, right? Next 1 minute. So now if I go back, okay, now if I go to monitoring and SLA, you will see it is saying right now there are 29 items in the queue which has to be processed in next 20 seconds, because I said 1 minute. So in next 20 seconds it is going to breach. Okay, now this window will continuously refresh. I'm not going to process any of the items within 1 minute. I'm not going to start the processing. So it is going to remain as it is, and you will see all these items are out of SLA. Now are you understanding? All of these items are now out of SLA because I'm not processing them, and I've set the moment they're getting added, from there it should be processed within 1 minute. Now because of this reason, because the processing has not been started, has not been completed for each item, remember each item in the queue within the SLA, of 1 minute. Because of that, all the items that are there in the queue will breach the SLA. For example, if I'm going to refresh this window and go to SLA, you can see all the 50 items have breached, SLA breached. SLA breach, out of SLAs, all the 50 items. In SLA 0, at risk 0, all the items are breached. You understanding? All the items are now breached. Now let us populate the queue once again. Okay, so dispatcher, let me run it again. So you're understanding, right? The moment the item is added, from there you have set 1 minute. That's why within 1 minute, if it is not processed, it is showing out of SLA. This is how the calculation is being made behind the scene. Now it is processing. Okay, it is started running. That means it's supposed to add items. Now let me go to SLA. Now if you see it here in SLA 0, out of SLA 60, necessary robots, you need actually 2 robots and you have only 1 robot which is over, what is the over capacity. Okay, so it is saying necessary robots you need 2. It is also giving you that how many robots you really need at this time. Okay, so here you can see 60, it is saying 60. Now let me refresh. In SLA 0, 82 items are out of SLA. So you should immediately start processing them. Otherwise, all the SLAs will be gone. Now to help you, to give you more details, this is the document that is available from UiPath. If you simply type SLA Prediction UiPath docs, you would find this document which helps you to understand what are the information. So this QSL overview that you see, right? These are each block representing one queue. Each block representing one queue. Okay, if you read this, allow you to see an overview of the queue's health state based on the configured SLA. So you can access if there are any problems that would cause SLA breach. Insufficient robots, we saw that it said 2 robots you need. Too many queue items. Each color block represents a specific queue from instance. Hovering over a block displays the name of the corresponding queue. If you hover the mouse, it will say Q1, Q2, Q3, right? Because we have only one queue, it is giving the name of that. Okay, now see, all 100 items are out of SLA because you did not process. Now, the same thing, if you make it to 2 hours, if I go back to the queue and again edit this, and I am making this SLA to, let's say, I'm giving a big window, 4 hours. Okay, 4 hours, and risk SLA I'm giving 2 hours. Now if I update, so all the items have got a bigger time window. Now this might take a little time to sync and all this thing to happen in the background. Now if I go to the monitoring tab, right, now I think it has already calculated for all those transaction items based on the previous data. Let me see if I refresh it. No, it is remaining the same. Now if I update the data once again for that queue, has been queued to start. So yep. So in 3R, actually should not say breach, right? Because it has got, it will breach in 3 hours. Okay. But in out of SLA also it's adding numbers. We should not add numbers in out of SLA there. We should do one more calculation, and so in SLA. It is still in SLA because I have got a bigger window. So this is how the calculation happens. Maybe there's some kind of improvement needed in this particular area so that it monitor live and gives you, because see the new items are getting added 129 and everything is going out SLA. It should not go to out SLA, right? It should come in, say, in SLA, because I have 4 hours window. I can start my processing anytime. Okay, so maybe the meaning is different, that you have got only 3 hours to process all these 134 items. Probably that is the meaning. So what is needed is you have to go through this particular document which would help you. I've given you the demonstration that is possible. This is not a live environment wherein we can really show you the real case, but again, whatever is possible, I've given you the demo, and I hope by going through this document and the examples given here, you would definitely understand it in more detail. So thank you guys for watching. We are going to meet once again in our next content. Till then, take care.